Good evening. You're listening to the Extreme Movie Show. I hope you're hearing the signal loud and clear because I just got through an earthquake. That's the 1997 movie that here, your host Rob from the Extreme Studios in the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida, is going to be covered with a person that doesn't probably get too many earthquakes. That's RDV from the Great Midwest. So yes, we're starting to touch on not the 80s, but the 90s because RDV is a 90s child, and we wanted to go with kind of like mid-grade movies. And so what better than to scratch that itch that we both like to have, and that of course is disaster movies, which is of course RDV is different than one of my personal favorites, When Animals Attack, because I really like that kind of stuff, fucking around with Mother Nature. This is one of those ones where Mother Nature teaches us a surprise and we have to deal with it. And I got to tell you, between this and Dante's Peak and the whole end of the world and the Jubilee and everything coming here in the late 90s that was popular in everybody's minds, some comically, some stupidly.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed in this movie. It's got Tommy Lee Jones, who's great. It's just suffers from not really, even if it's cheesy, which is okay, a disaster film's supposed to be a fucking disaster. And I want carnage, and I don't want really bad looking carnage. I want carnage that like makes you think. And no dogs were harmed in the filming of this because that would be a cheap effect. But this, I don't know, this, I went to watch it. I hadn't watched it since it came out in 25 plus years. And I just was shaking my head going, wow, this posed for top shelf entertainment in the 90s. And to me, it's really not. I prefer the Earthquake from the 70s that we reviewed here early on with, was it Heston and a bunch of other guys there too, the Breath of Sure guy and whatnot. I don't know, man. I think you've already probably seen this, but what's your initial take?
Dude, watch this again. Remember how much I love this movie.
Really?
I liked it the first time. And I recognize that the CG's bad, but the CG kind of reminds me of Ghostbusters CG quality from the 80s. Obviously with the volcano, with the lava, it reminds me of the river slime in Ghostbusters 2. And like I said, this was always a fun popcorn, flick movie. The only thing that hasn't changed, because I remember, is that the daughter was annoying in this.
Yeah.
Because kids always get in cause things worse, and just, but can't blame the kid because he sent the kid to the place, and because, well, he didn't know the time. Well, now he has to evacuate from that place, but like I said, there were some deaths in this movie. Normally it's like, if it's made for TV movie, there'd be no deaths. They said at the end of this, there was like over 100 people that died. I wouldn't be surprised, and it didn't show. There was only a couple gruesome deaths. A guy jumping into, well, it's a heroic death, I'd say, jumping into onto a guy. Yeah. Normally, I'm thinking if I would have done that, we're both dead. I don't have the upper body strength to do that. But cast of celebrities in here was pretty cool.
It was a decent cast. I'll give it credit for that.
Keith David randomly just walks on the screen. What's up, bro? I love that. I always forget about that. And not only that, the main girl in here,
Anne Heche.
Anne Heche sadly passed away a
couple years ago.
Yeah.
Now, Don Cheadle at this time was starting to pop up in a bunch of stuff.
Dude, I remember as I said, we saw Don Cheadle pop in here too.
Yep.
Don Cheadle, I can't stand him now, but back then he was a more approachable, likable person. At least he came off that. He had more positive vibes in this movie.
Well, there was a bunch of people that seemed to like starting to appear in all these roles. Jack Black's another one where you're kind of like, okay, is this going to be the new wave, an old wave? So even the one in there, the doctor, the Asian lady, Jacqueline Kim, I've seen her in 50 million things, but I don't know if she's had a big hit. And then you've got John Carroll Lynch, who plays Stan. He's the bald dude that's got kind of like the dad look to him.
Anchorman.
And I go, wait a minute, I know this guy. And I had to pause it and think about it. And I keep pimping around Halloween time here a show that was on Sci-Fi called Channel Zero, where they did some episodes out of creepypastas. And he plays in a really friggin' creepy one. It's just hard to explain because it's really trippy. And I thought, this dude's been around that long? I mean, I figured he had, but I think he's Canadian.
Yeah, so John Carroll Lynch. Yeah,
and you know what? Here we are talking about everything about this movie, and this is some of the problems and issues that I want to address because we talk about themes here on the Extreme Movie Show. The 80s, you and I have talked a lot about the action films and how they're more martial arts or hand-to-hand. around commando time, 95 or 85. They sort of shifted just guns and explosions. Okay, fine. We had a little second wave of martial arts we thought were going to carry us for a while, and that died down because when the 90s hit hard and fast, to your point, I mean, it's got a great cast. I can give the CGI a nod because it's in its infancy, but boy, did the 90s try to shove it down your throat, showing you pictures of discs and big, fat, ugly monitors and everything else there, too. It was not cool looking in the least. But that's the problem with this movie. It's like you mentioned the heroic deaths in here, right? I don't really care about that. I want to see something else. The 90s did not do a good job of making heroes, whether it's Armageddon or this or other things. It's not. It doesn't have the same spirit. And also, too, I want to mention this for those that are a little bit older, like 80s or beyond, like myself. There was a big earthquake, and I think in Northridge in like 94, 93, during the World Series. I was watching it live when it happened. It was a big deal, the destruction and everything, too. And so it was kind of interesting that a disaster movie came out like this. So I don't know if there was an intention to kind of make it not so serious, let's say, because we've got the cast. But when you've got Tommy Lee Jones fresh off this monster hit called The Fugitive, a reimaging of a 60s TV show, a Quinn Martin production, by the way, you got Harrison Ford in it, but you got the guy chase him. Everyone loves Harrison Ford, just like everybody loves, certain actors. But Tommy Lee Jones had been around for a long time, and then that really cemented him. And so when he was in here and other movies, you're like, man, this thing's going to be a banger. And you want to see Tommy Jones in that logistical leadership type role, ordering people what to do. But it's like, unless it's in Texas or something like that, it just seems like it falls flat here a little bit. Do you see that?
Like I said, I like this movie. I didn't see any faults with it.
Okay.
I don't know. It's I kind of saw what they're kind of doing. They were trying to end racism. When ashes falls on you from a volcano, the one little boy says, like, look, we all look the same. Like I said, it's a cheesy movie. Like I said, it's not meant to be serious, but it was a big blockbuster hit back in the day. At least
not really.
Not like GoldenEye and stuff like that, but it still did well in the box office.
To use the term you've used before, a lot of people thought this movie was mid. For the effects and everything else, people expected some spectacular. And I think the problem with some of the 90s movies with CGI in it still being in its infancy, when you see stuff like The Lawnmower Man or this, unless it's like just a little artistic flair or something, but you try to make it integral into it, it just comes across as looking really phony. Now, you can overdo it like, anything The Rock's been in, the disaster movies wise, right? But at least you get a sense of scale or whatever. Here, it's just, they did have some nice destruction, set pieces and stuff like that. I will say that. But I felt like the scope and scale of its destruction kind of was missing that we've seen in stuff that were 20 years older, whether it's a plane crash, which we have still yet to do, like Flight of the Phoenix or any of these other type of serious plane crash movies and other disaster stuff. So natural ones are pretty cool. But I didn't feel a threat. I didn't feel scared about it at all. It was like watching, like I say, Tommy Lee Jones bark at people and do stuff and have a team into it. And I just wasn't feeling the impending doom.
Well, how do you feel about that dog?
That
scene, the dog. They're not. And
I'm a dog guy. Full disclosure there. So it's kind of like,
it's a typical Hollywood trope. They make you feel like, the dog's gonna get it. We saw this in the Meg, the dog. Every time there's a dog, it's like there's always like, are they gonna kill the dog? No.
What was it, Old Yeller? Okay, that was going to happen. I get it.
No, but honestly,
same thing with Lenny. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I didn't look at this to be as a scary movie or anything like that.
It's a disaster. No, it's supposed to be death and destruction.
It's supposed to be absurd. This is a volcano in the middle of Los Angeles coming out of the Brea Tar Pits. And so you see in the photo right there, behind us, that's the volcano now. That's going to be in L.A. after this movie's done. Heck, man, I wanted a sequel. That's what I wanted. Tommy Lee Jones, yes, and Anne Heche, kind of like everybody had. They're supposed to be like the eventual love interest towards the end of the movie. He's 25 plus or senior.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, it was the 90s though. It was in the 40s anymore. I thought it was kind of weird.
No, that's just Hollywood sanitizing it.
Well, she liked him because he was an alpha male, That's what he was in this movie, bouncing people around, and then he gave her lip back, and she liked it, but
she was what you would say, sassy,
very sassy,
slightly spirited.
She was hot smoking. Whew.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I would draft her to trade her based off of what you're saying because that's just sort of how it goes. But she was cute, and here's the thing: she was in a lot of stuff too. So, like I say, in the '90s, you had all these people showing up, and you're like, just because you got a lot of decent people and up and comers and some decent cast members, you still need to have somebody lead it and have it center around, and that's supposed to again be Tommy Lee Jones. So I don't have a problem with what they were trying to do and how they did it, but it just again, there's something missing here that I just don't see now. It was a fairly expensive movie for the time, but it doesn't feel like it to me. It feels like it's a chiller kind of late night USA type thing or whatever.
It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a sci-fi level quality. It's not meant to be like super like high budget movie.
I disagree 90s. Though. That's how it was built and presented.
Well, that's how a lot of them were built in the '90s, but they never really were.
That is true, and that's something we'll be talking about a lot more in the '90s.
So I can't blame it for being something that it was never intended to be. But honestly, it was meant for pure entertainment, and that's what it was. It was not meant to be taken seriously. It's a freaking volcano in the middle of Los Angeles going up. Like I said, it's like watching like well, it's not as bad as Will Ferrell with Under Lost.
That is true.
No. But I mean, I like this, and like how they had to they're trying to divert the lava, and
how do they do that, sir?
Well, first he used the bus, but then they ended up using those concrete blocks, and then they used dynamite to blow up a building. The planet down. We got 23 minutes. They got to drop this building, and what's significant about this building? Well, that's the doctor, her dick, her husband, doesn't want her down there. Well, basically, helping out with the sick as he's a rich elite, Los Angeles yuppie. That's his apartment building they knocked down. The one he bought the planet. I laughed about that. Like this is watching this movie is on the lines of watching Daylight.
I think Daylight's head and shoulders above.
Or watching Deep Impact with Morgan Freeman.
That will put you to sleep.
One might even argue Twister.
Twister is good.
I like Twister though.
Okay, but let's compare that to Twister for example, because one of the things we've talked about when we've done some of the Godzilla movies, I don't like how they turn cartoony and all that with the fights and all that. I really preferred say like Godzilla -1, where it's more of an allegory of the human condition. That's the one from last year, and then the 2014 Gareth Edwards one. To me, that's the best. And some people say, well, why? You don't even see Godzilla till like over an hour into the movie. And I'm like, yeah, and you only see him for a split second for a leg, but it's enough to give you a sense of scope, and it's done well where you're like, you feel small compared to the way they shot it, even though it's CGI. There's the way it's done was very effective. And so I hate that less is more kind of stuff because this can't be true. More is more. But I wanted to ask you, talking about Twister, we reviewed Twister and Twisters. We might re-review Twister because it is such a good movie and it's been a while. How much disaster do you want and expect to see in a disaster film?
Well, a disaster film, I mean, obviously, so it's lava. Lava's going to go everywhere. Cars are going to blow up, explosions, fire. I don't want to watch people burn to death in a volcano movie. Twister was right around the same amount of damage. To me, Twister was basically the tornado came in, leveled the place, and then that was it. The Twister, there wasn't really many deaths that you saw on camera. Deaths, I don't know. It's like this. Obviously, I'm going in this. You're who you're rooting for. You're rooting for Tommy Lee Jones, a guy who basically is billed as, and I guess he's in case of emergency, he's in charge of everything. The one guy. The EMO, or which I don't know if that's even a real title.
Oh, there's definitely emergency centers in all major cities that do similar to what he did.
Where he has control of everything.
Depending on the state and the laws, and of course the main government, absolutely, without question.
Okay, that was like I said.
That's a real thing.
These movies make up stuff because I never know anymore. But
you're bringing up a good point though, because it's like you're rooting for this guy that's a government agent, but no, you're rooting for him because it's Tom Lee Jones. But it's one of those things where I feel like they focused almost a little bit too much on all that stuff, and the soap opera level was not nearly as involved like it was, say an earthquake or any of the 70s disasters, where it was really a soap opera, and then the things would get magnified because of this natural impact. You know what I'm saying?
Earthquake, you couldn't even root for the main guy, Charlton Heston, because he's cheating on his wife.
I know, right?
He's like, this guy at least has a daughter that he cares about. He's divorced, can't stand his wife, and has a boss that's basically yelling at it, wants to basically yelling through Don Cheadle to him, because he's you're supposed to be a desk job. You're not supposed to be on the field, blah blah blah, which is kind of believable. I wouldn't be surprised, if there are people like that, guys actually trying to do the right thing, and he's got someone tell him, no, we got this handled, and they don't know what the hell they're doing,
right?
So, but honestly, I enjoy this movie. It's one of my guilty pleasures. Like I said, Dante's Peak, same thing. Grandma holding up the kids while she's sacrificing herself. Her legs. It's like the same thing. We talked about John. I think John Carroll Lynch is like his name is here. Yeah, he and the other guy who's in charge of, I guess, I forget what was it, the phone lines or something like that. But yeah, anyway, like those three, him and Tommy Jones came together at first, and like when there was a problem, there's a gas leak. They're building this. This is weird too. They're building a subway through like downtown Los Angeles.
Yep.
I'm like, first of all, I don't think there even is a. I think this is all made up, right? There's no such thing as a subway in California.
What's the biggest city you've been to?
Chicago.
Okay, and so what do they have?
Above ground.
Yeah, they call it like the L. New York, a lot of them do it.
Yeah, because
so you think there's not a rail line in Los Angeles?
Well, with the shoreline, I don't know. Obviously, in San Diego, they raise it up. So I don't know if they have a subway going through California. I've never been to California. Never, I know New York does, but I don't know if California has that capability, or I don't know.
The reason why you don't have it down here in Florida is because of the water table. We're pretty much at the regular level. I think LA is a little bit higher with it. Correct me if I'm wrong, listeners. I know some of you all have been out there. I have not. I've been to Northern California hiking and such. I was under the impression Los Angeles has an underground subway. And, if you're not used to it and you don't think about it, you just think of like buses or trains or whatever like that. But LA's been around obviously for quite some time. I thought that they definitely had that as well. And so
let me look.
You would run your lines through it. And this is where some of these discussions about movies kind of take their place, because we got people listening all around the world that tell us certain things about it. I think it's pretty fascinating. And
so they do. They actually do have one.
So no, I think that's an interesting observation, because a part of you goes, well, why would they have it? It's real, because you don't see it often in Los Angeles. You definitely see it in Chicago. You definitely see it in New York, and you get associated with those things, right? And we've talked about New York many times in movies, just because the background a lot of times in the 70s and 80s and how grimy it looked, whether it was Death Wish or The Wolfen or whatever. But LA, we never think of subways, right?
No, because they don't really show them on any movies or stuff, or we mention them or TV shows. So like I said, I've never been to California. So obviously I'm not a big talk about, hey, I was on the subway and like, eat fresh. Like I said, so I wasn't sure if that was even real too, but they're building one. But apparently they do have a metro.
And they have their earthquake fault lines. So usually one will rise up, one will rise down. You get some issues. So there's just a lot of areas around there that when they collide do it. And if you just look north, when you get to like say where we talked about Alcatraz, right? Escape from Alcatraz, 1979, up there to San Francisco, the Bay Area. From there north, you can just basically look at any map on Google Maps and see where all the mountains are at, and all the volcano peaks too, going up to the Shasta Mountains, everything going up towards Oregon all the way up. That's part of the Ring of Fire that goes all the way through Alaska and down through Japan in that way. So it's definitely very active. Now, it's just one of those things where you don't get one that big all the time, but when you do, it's great. I'll try to take it a level deeper. When I say the disaster, when I was asking you, how much do you want to see? It's not that I want to see gruesome deaths or just massive destruction. I want to appreciate what nature could do, because here in Florida, I've been through several hurricanes. I've been a week without electricity. I've seen what flooding can do. And so it's a marvel when people can kind of capture that. And we're not talking survival stories necessarily here, where it gets really gritty and it's about the human condition. But in a movie like this, I wanted to be kind of left in awe of the destruction, the mayhem it could cause. Right? It's not like were afraid to show you lava. It's just I looked at it and went, man, this is like Star Trek original series level special effects. I mean, there's some nice set pieces, but
lava bombs.
well,
Yeah.
there's always those B and C level movies like Valente, which I watch as a lark because it's a dumb, goofy movie. And so you would have volcanoes and earthquakes, right? And these giant lava spiders would come out, right? And it's stupid. That's what you expect. This was not supposed to be one of those movies. And so people are watching it going, it's not bad. It's okay. It's there. It has all the elements of it, but it's not, it's like cooking. You have to put it together, do something with it. Sometimes you got to put it in 10 more minutes, add some more salt, put a little spice in or like that just to make it the meal that it is. And this movie just does not serve that up at all. There's not, I think, one really impressive scene about the volcano. And there's some interesting looks and stuff. Yes, it's got familiar territories, like you're saying, the Brea Tar Pits, and it's got a likable cast. I'm just waiting for this movie to really give me a sense of allness and bigness, and it doesn't do that. Dante's Peak, when we go to review that, might be different. A long time. I don't remember if it does or
for
doesn't.
me, the suspense is basically when they first go into the tunnel down there, and they realize how hot it is. They start Tommy Lee Jones, the other guy. They start melting. I'm waiting for one of the guys to die in there with Tommy Lee Jones. They get out of there, and he doesn't know it's a volcano. He's not that, and he's not a geologist because he's not really into that. But because they haven't seen any lava yet, but he saw fireballs coming up there. The fireball things, whenever they blow up and they go, and it sucks back in like backdraft. I know exactly. That's another movie we talk about.
Firefighter movies #.
Yeah. Hot movies.
Yeah, I want to be entertained. I don't want to be educated.
So yeah, I'm trying to remember I'm watching this. Obviously I know the volcano is rough stuff. The manhole cover shooting off the steam, it was interesting too. Just the fireball being lobbed off because it's shooting up globs of lava and they're falling down. And Heche, her character was kind of useless in this. She knew some stuff, but she was kind of
there.
Yeah, there. I mean, she was the love interest. She went down with her friend, well, we don't need no man. We're gonna take our own readings, And her friend gets basically sucked into the lava, or the chasm, and falls in. And like I said, it is cheesy CGI. It's but it is what it is. This is early '90s, or I guess mid '90s,
late
'90s, 97, yeah. But like I said, it's honestly, I like that not everything was green screen. Not everything was green screen.
Agreed. I'll give it that. Yeah.
This was still in the time before, hey, let's just just put everything on a computer and have people just run away from nothing. So there was stuff there was some, you obviously could tell it was green screen. Whenever they're in the command center, John Cheadle and all the other guys were looking at watching the TV.
Mm-hmm.
They were watching nothing in real life. Obviously there's a report on. Yeah, the one guy I was reporting, he was in his car reporting, and he was like, "Oh, he's a news guy." So he's on his flip phone. Remember the ones that pop there, and then he had to pop it up.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, nostalgia for those. Yeah, he basically was calling on reports, calling him in. It's like, it was basically the ash started falling down. You had Tommy Lee Jones and his daughter, Gaby Hoffmann, is the actress name. We're basically driving in the trunk, and then globs of fireball started coming down, and basically the fire truck got taken out and then flipped over on its side. Tommy Lee Jones said, "Here," they left his 13-year-old daughter who's scared out of her mind in the truck. He's like, "If you get scared, honk the horn." I'm waiting for comic relief. Her to go, "Beep, huh? I'm scared."
Mm-hmm.
And the firefighters they go trapped inside the truck, and they all got. Of course, you got this other lady, Jacqueline Kim, the actress, who you probably know her from ER, and she's been on a few other things.
Oh, probably one of those. I don't watch medical shows for those.
ER, West Wing.
That makes sense.
Xena, she was also on Courthouse back in the day.
Xena?
Xena Warrior
Really?
Princess, yeah.
Ah.
Disclosure. She was in Disclosure.
Okay.
Star Trek, Generations, Mighty Ducks.
I knew she was around, but you see how somebody can have an entire career, and in the '90s, you're like, Okay, what have they done to make into a major motion picture film? But to your point,
No,
full line of credits. I mean, this is one of the things that comes up when we do these
well,
movies.
her big thing was she was an ER too, for a while, so it made sense that she was a doctor in this movie. But yeah, anyway, yeah. So this is where we get to meet the doctor. Finally, we started before because I like this. What this movie was building up. You had a couple of different characters and being introduced offside. You had the main characters and you had the sub characters, and then they had each of their individual little story plots, and they kind of merged. John Carroll Lynch was a dick, but it's like it's just like I said, dare I say, just like 9/11, everyone comes together.
You know, I agree. It's very formulaic. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily at all. You mentioned Twister earlier, Dante speaking Armageddon. I'm glad you mentioned those because I wanted to let everybody know that RDV just recently posted another 90s movie poll about which movie to review on Sunday. So check that out. We've already got about 20 or so votes on that. Right now it's a dead heat between, was it Armageddon, which I despise. And then, of course, Twister, which is good. And one of the reasons why I wanted to mention that was not just because of the vote and say, hey, if you guys vote, we'll take a look at it, is with Twister. The one thing I liked about what they did in that movie is, as a disaster movie, you got a disaster early on, short, quick, it's over, immediate respect for what they did. They didn't go crazy and go all out. You got it was short, sweet, and to the point. So you already know how well they did that. You got to nail that opening scene, right? So then you have appreciation of the fear. You don't know what's going to happen again. You meet the people, they go to do their thing or whatever the storylines are, it's fine. So they go to get into it a second time. And what I like is Mother Nature's basically not tricking them, but Mother Nature is Mother Nature. It's while they might be able to have all the digital tools in the world, and maybe they're just got a natural smell of the air, can tell things because they're just got that sixth sense about it themselves. The point is it's never quite the same, you know. So they something different maybe happens in the second one, and then there's the whole big thing where they're forced to, you know, figure out what it is they need to do by another big disaster. The boom, there's the one last one, and that's the grand finale, right? So this movie, I think, does try to do that, but like I was saying before, and again, CGI was fairly in its infancy, so I want to give it a bit of a pass. I'm not want to beat up on it too hard, but can you imagine what it must have been like in the 90s when you went from, like, say, all the Chuck Norris films that we did in the 80s and the martial arts films, all of them that we did, and we talk about how we much prefer the choreographed stuff that very little wire work. Yes, you're going to have pads that they're going to land on if they're jumping or they're tumbling and whatnot too. But the point is we get to see them doing all of that. And so this natural form of capturing all that stuff, and then a bunch of people are going, hey, we don't have to do that. We can just digitize it. We can put it on the computer. We may not be able to do a lot now, and then it'll get cheaper. We'll do it like forever since the late 90s. But can you imagine all the people who've worked on disaster films and whoever worked on this volcano goes, well, I don't know. How do I make lava look real with this thing called a computer? I mean, laptops were $5,000 back in the early to mid 90s, you know, a high end one. And it was really not financially prudent at that time to do that because of the computing power and all that to render these scenes somewhat visible, right? So I'm just going, it must have been interesting to have a whole new wave of younger people getting into making these types of films where they've got a good cast, they've got a passable script for all intents and purposes, whether you care about the people or not. We don't hate anything about it. It's not done bad, but that's different than still being good to me. And I think a big flaw of it is they didn't somehow let you as a viewer respect whatever the disaster was going to be on some level. It was just sort of there. And that's, like I said, my biggest complaint. It's kind of fun watching it in the sense that you go, man, I feel like I do with the 90s, because you're right. In the 90s, everything was watered down to me. Any disaster movie, still go, oh my God, it's a disaster movie. That's a disaster movie. Let's have a little bit of fun. Revenge film, it's not hardcore. It's, let's make it kind of sexy and pretty, you know?
It wasn't where like they're going to preach you at the end and like, oh, it's because of pollution. You know, it wasn't the ozone layer is gone, you know.
Right. I agree with you, and I do respect that because back then it was global warming, now it's global cooling, and whatever your stance is on climate change and all that kind of stuff, it's really not prevalent in this film at all, thankfully.
The cool scenes I like in this movie is especially they show the Brea Tar Pit, and you see the elephant slowly sinking down because it's heating up. It's burbling. I love the Brea Tar Pits.
That was kind of a cool scene, right?
Yeah.
Because it's La Brea, you want to do something with it because you associate with that, right?
And it makes sense that nobody walking by notice it because people don't pay attention. People look at their cell phones or whatever. Actually, this 90s, they didn't have cell phones, or they had not smartphones to say. They had cell phones. But people didn't look to see it, like, oh, unless it made a noise, they're not going to look, Or people had remember they had the portable headset Walkmans, like these, and they did walk around with them, You had the radio headphones, the antenna, like. The other scene I liked here too was basically with John Carroll Lynch. He was a dick to everyone. Like, we kind of jerk. They were betting on the earthquakes, where it was going to be and how big it was. They're making money off this, and he refused to shut down the train station. Because of a maybe. He didn't want to take the heat for in case they were wrong. So he got off his ass, went in there after the train crashed. They went in there and he got in there. They got everybody off of there. The guy, and they're like, "What is this?" And they realized it's lava coming through. He could have saved himself, and like I said, he did a selfless act. And then he just fell to hell. He jumped in. He went straight down. He didn't he was gone. There's no fire. He's just like, ah! I crack up every time. It's supposed to be a heroic thing, but I crack up. I like that. I said the other scene when they're putting the fire truck. They were gonna before the first scene with the fire truck where there's a guy, there's lava's coming, and there's this dude, this bum. Or I don't know if it's a guy or a passed. He's basically a guy passed out. They're gonna get him, but they get trapped because a pole comes down and it's on a fire, telephone pole, and they're trapped in this fire truck and stuff. So they get this other guy, the other fire truck, with the ladder over there. They grab onto it. The guy's on top of it. He's like, because they put him on top of there, and he's legs on fire because the hose is on fire, and he keeps shaking like a dumbass. And then being swung over the lava. When I keep thinking about this movie, when I see this, the floor is lava.
I loved that show.
I just kept thinking about that. I was like, every time I watch this movie, it's like the floor is lava. Get jump from here to here. But
even then, like American and all these other type of kid ones or whatever, it kind of, if you've never fallen on your face and really smashed your ass off, like with sports or riding a bike or something like that, it's really hard to appreciate. Because like I say, down here in Florida, born and bred, Central Florida, I mean, if you've not been close to a transformer when it explodes, I mean, you'll crap your pants because it'll just take you off guard. And it has this undescribable greenish type of glow to it right before it happens, in the sound. And the lightning, everybody's heard lightning, everybody's heard thunder. But when it's close and you can almost smell it before it happens, it's really creepy. And the kind of gray that we get, I mean, the only time I saw that in any sort of disaster film was Twister and Twisters. The space ones are kind of interesting, but nobody has that familiarity with space, right? So that's why sometimes these natural ones, whether it's a flood or whether it's fire, you
want the realism.
And honestly, some people in the 90s, there was this angle of the Y2K thing. A lot of people looked at it from a religious perspective of this is, like the Jubilee, this is the end of the world kind of thing. There's always that. And I'm not saying that's right or it's wrong. I'm not belittling anybody that has any particular religious beliefs or thoughts about it. But some people started questioning about these movies like, it's, that's just a message to everybody and all that we should really appreciate what's going on. Noah's Ark, the flood. I mean, natural disasters, right? There's something inherent about it because as a species, we've been having to deal with them our whole life.
Yeah, like I said, I was going through the 90s, a lot of movies. There's a Perfect Squall. That's the one that gave me nightmares about ever going on a boat.
Yeah.
Or White Squall. Sorry, not Perfect Squall, White Squall. Perfect Storm, the other sad thing.
Good movie.
Good movie, but like depressing.
It sounds weird me asking these questions, but I know you're up there in the Great Midwest, so I don't know if you've been on the Great Lakes and all that. Have you ever been on a boat surrounded by water, or say down on a beach and caught in a riptide or something?
I know at first I've never been caught in one, but I know they exist, and dude, you do not want to get in there under that because it's impossible. Sometimes they because there's so many. I hear about people drowning, and I'm like, how do they drown? They're on the beach in the shallow water because it comes in and it sucks them right out.
I am telling you, bro. You go to the beach, especially like say on the west side of Florida. You get the waves in there. When you have the Gulf side, it's very calm and clear and better looking and better beaches. So, you go to the beach there, you could literally be in say a couple inches of sand, and you could see a shark. A couple foot long one.
Well,
Not
yeah,
lying.
they swim in. They swim all the way up
And
in
the
there.
water is so warm over at like 80 degrees. I mean, it's like, oh, this is pretty awesome. And when it's cold out here and the water's cooler, everybody from overseas, like British people or people from Europe, they're like, oh, this is still great. We love it. It's like, well, our water here, it's even warmer. I'm like, I can't swim in that. I'll go into shock or whatever. But I'm telling you, if you haven't been caught in a riptide, I've known people that have. Those things just make you really humble and appreciate it. Just like if you haven't fallen from a tree, right?
I know, but I mean, like being in a riptide is something I'd never want to like brag about. Yeah, bro, I've been in a riptide. I'm like, you almost died. That's something to brag.
No joke.
No, I know. Yeah, like the biggest thing we have had here in the Great Lakes was 70s. That was Edmund Fitzgerald. That went down there during the storm, and it's lakes and waters and stuff. And I don't prefer being on boats. I don't like. First of all, I don't like the motion of it. If you're in a small boat, you're so freaking choppy. You're like, oh shit. In little canoes.
You're a land lover.
Canoes. I don't have gills. I'm not gonna go on there. I'm not Kevin Costner in Waterworld. There's another movie we can watch. No. So beginning back to Volcano. Volcano had some really kind of goofy stuff. When his truck is on fire or lava's coming against his girl, and he sends on top of the truck, the gas station doesn't explode. And the tires start popping, they start melting down, and he jumps off the lava. He jumps off to the side of the lava because the lava is going one direction. So he's like, I'll go to this way, the side of it, and it won't come near me. And they're like just by lava as it goes by. The guys in the fire truck though, that was just nerve wracking because he was to get the guys out of the fire truck, he was gonna climb in there, but then his daughter's like, Dad, I need help. And he's like, well, sorry, dude, you're on your own. The guy's like, get me out of here the whole time. Another firefighter finally gets over there, gets to try to get him out, and they both get caught in the lava, and then they just get sailed down as they melt and burn. That's ways to go, man. And then we got the two SWAT guys, or basically not SWAT guys, but the cops, bomb experts over. They get trapped inside the building because one guy gets caught on the air conditioning vent that fell on him, broke his leg, and they only have so many minutes to blow up the building, to derail it, to try and block the lava from going into the Cedars Hospital.
Right.
It is. You can tell it's a fake CGI. I guess if you look back to Earthquake had some like small scale buildings that they built, little models they built, and then they
it tricks your brain.
Yeah,
CGI.
Whenever you see like the Hulk, Incredible Hulk show, whenever you see like a distraction, like a bomb explodes and a tree flies or whatever, it's always a small scale models.
He's big, green, and jacked, and that's all I care about. He's still the best to me. Damn it. Well, I'll throw this out there for the audience because we're going to wrap it up here, and we got a couple announcements that we want to make here. The one theme I'm going to bring up here, because we've only touched on some 90s movies. We're going to get into it more. We've talked about the 80s, and we still continue to do so, of course. But one of the things about the 90s, I think, not something even up to argue or debate, is that it's no secret that at this time in Hollywood, with technology starting to get more prevalent, the shift to CGI and all that, possibly a new wave of actors from a newer studio rather than the old school style, there's a transition, so that's fine. There's no doubt in my mind, at least in American cinema, there is the concerted effort by the United States government to put a lot of money into films, or help them come along with financing and such, because it's making somebody who looks like a government agent more likable. And I think that's one of the issues, thinking about it here in retrospect about this film. Hey, look, I appreciate somebody that's a cop or fireman. Thank you for your service and all that crap everybody likes to say. But you did it. You're doing the job. Do your job. And, well, you got to go above and beyond and all that. Well, I'm not crap on anybody here, but it's just, it felt a little forced to me here. And I will simply say this. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much footage you've seen, say the fires that happened in Hawaii over the past year. just some of those people standing in the water right off the shore with their kids or whatever like that, while their houses are burning. Somehow, even that kind of footage from a cell phone was more intimidating here. And the problem with Volcano is and I'll agree with you, it's lighthearted, it's a cheese fest, it's white rice, it's easily digestible, very forgettable. There's nothing great about, nothing bad about it. It's just there. It's white bread, which I despise myself. Can only be useful in certain circumstances. This movie lacked punch for me. I would not necessarily recommend it, but if I wanted to say, oh, you want to see what the '90s version of disaster film is, put this on. But I would actually say Twister, but we haven't viewed that again yet. Maybe, depending on how people vote, that's it. So I did mention the vote. I wanted to make one more announcement here, RDB, that I'll share with you as we close out. I want to let everybody know it is official. The young 20-something Professor Pix, also from Central Florida, is back in town. He had a commitment outside. So we're going to be continuing our Forever Night television show review on Extreme TV on Sundays. However, we chose to do that offline and drop that later in the week. We love the show. I think it's a lot of fun, but we've had such a strong demand and turnout for asking whether or not Columbo season 2, which we typically don't do, would be something that everybody that's a fan wants to hear. So we're going to go ahead and be live Sunday, I believe 6 to 6:30ish, approximately, or 6:30 to 7, I should say, live for it. It's going to be a very reduced time slot, and so right now, just the two of us are going to be doing that. We're going to see how that season 2 goes. If it turns out being as popular as season 1, we'll probably continue season 3, maybe at a bigger format, maybe with some guests coming on there too. But Forever Night will drop. I think this is going to be Thursday night, correct?
Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. Will be the new time slot. They'll be doing those little half an hour little reviews of that for each episodes. So basically, we're gonna have Columbo season 2 coming back this upcoming Sunday.
Yep.
So,
well, I'll just say this. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. Obviously, we had I was amazed by the turnout we had. We had over 100 votes on the last one, so that's why I wanted to continue doing this. It was a great turnout. So thanks to everybody that voted and or decided to join, listen, retweet, let people know we exist and all that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody picks for Sunday. Remember, guys, we don't really do anything other than watch this and Cole comment to it. We don't really research it. We just talk about what we feel, and what we do a little differently is we compare it to other things, and we don't watchers or anything. So that's our shtick.
Yeah, we don't care about facts. We're all about feelings here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Feelings don't care about facts.
You just murdered that, but that's okay.
I know. I'm on purpose because
I know.
Final thoughts in this movie. Obviously, it's like Godzilla without. It's like the 1996 Godzilla. You don't see Godzilla, or even the 2013 or 14.
Oh, you're right. Even Godzilla was horrible and wimpy in the 90s.
No, but I'm listening. You don't see the volcano. You see the effects of the volcano, the side effects are there clearly. The first time you see the volcano is the very last 3 seconds of the film before it goes to credits.
That's a big point.
Which is okay. I think it would have ruined it if we would have saw, hey, there's a volcano that's more up. No, but like I said, these disaster movies, it's what it is. There's a ton of them that came out in this. There's especially in sci-fi.
You can't stop them.
No, Deep Impact was a year later. Dante's Peak was right around the same time, I think. Right, this
Armageddon, Twister. Wow. There's much more we're forgetting too.
But Twister always be my favorite of all of them because it has Bill Paxton.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Listen. Good night now.
Later, guys. And as always, remember to click like, do all that fun stuff, and let us know what you thought of the movie down below in the comment section.
Down where?
Down there.
There you go.
All right. Later, guys.